Well, residents in the city of Johannesburg should brace themselves over warnings of a looming water and sanitation crisis. The Johannesburg Water Business Plan shows a 60 billion rand financing deficit over the next 10 years, which would likely push the grid and related infrastructure towards collapse. Already, the city is experiencing severe water supply challenges. Let's examine the financial picture now with Chief Economist and Director at Econometrix, Dr Azar Jammine. Dr Jammine, good morning to you. Welcome. Thank you as always for your time. We appreciate it. So, the details of this News 24 story are quite harrowing in terms of the backlogs that the city is facing with regard to the infrastructure crisis. They haven't maintained that infrastructure over the last couple of years. The Johannesburg Water Business Plan shows a number of alarming details, but mainly it seems to be the result of the city not meeting their own targets in terms of infrastructure maintenance. We'll get to the details in just a moment in terms of them not meeting this mandatory infrastructure renewal rate of 2% to keep the infrastructure and the assets in good order. But this didn't happen as a surprise. This is something they could have anticipated.
It is something that they should have anticipated, and really is simply a reflection of the manner in which the government and public service generally has overlooked doing enough maintenance, or has not been able to, has been incompetent enough to do the kind of maintenance that has been required. It's also a function of very low economic growth that has meant that government revenue has fallen short of what has been necessary to fund a lot of the maintenance work. But in turn, that has been a function also of the spread of corrupt activities and the fact that many politicians involved in and imbued with decision-making capabilities are there really only to make sure that they have a decent, a nice job that pays them well, and have been and offers them opportunities to grab certain procurement processes for their own financial ends. This is symptomatic not only of water, but of many, many other industries in the economy. Until recently, with a big focus naturally has been on electricity shortages because of the immediate impact of load shedding. Then we had logistical bottlenecks, and now we see water shortages. All of these are functions of insufficient maintenance for a variety of reasons. The fourth reason that one can put forward is a loss of critical skills in the management of many of these service delivery processes.
A perfect storm, as you say there, Dr Azar Jammine, the convergence of the skills dearth combined with corruption and a lack of proper oversight leading to a situation like this. And it's on oversight that I want to go to next. The report estimated that on average, Johannesburg water pipe replacements, for example, should cost around just over R1 billion a year. Sewer pipe replacements, just under R1 billion a year to meet this target of replacing 1.5% of the company's asset value. But over the past decade, they've not even managed to meet that 1.5% renewal rate. There's some funding limitations there. The underfunding has apparently led to this. Where was the oversight is the question that someone asked, because already you could see the trajectory, the trend that it was following. Something needed to happen to provide a different outcome and outlook than this. Where was it?
Well, clearly there wasn't any oversight. Part of the problem, as we've seen in recent years, has been uncertainty as to who exactly is managing the region. And the second point to make is that the people imbued with the task of managing and providing oversight, and really their primary oversight has been to try and feather their nests rather than to actually fix the problem. Or, in other instances, there has been a sufficient lack of confidence amongst political deployees in charge of making these managerial decisions to actually provide that oversight. Many of them have simply found it more convenient and more appropriate just to sit on their hands and do nothing, because then they can't be found out for any immediately. And so we have just not seen the appropriate decision making, let alone using, the shortage of funding and the inability to fund a lot of these maintenance programs. But I'm sure that a lot of that funding could have been found, but instead has gone in towards awarding procurement to friends rather than worrying about improving the whole water situation.
Azar, what I don't want to go into is this complacency around, and we've heard what you have raised as a problem in many different sectors, whether it comes to power or infrastructure or whatever, around, officials who are either, are tainted with the brush of suspicion or found to have not done their job. So the issue of accountability, often we just accept as part of the complex of why things don't get done, and then we end up heading for the precipice. What can you talk to us about, and maybe this is slightly outside of your mandate, but what can you share with us in terms of how we do that so that it's not just another acceptance of, some people didn't do their jobs or some people were corrupt, but now this is the problem that we face and this is what we have to do. So how do we get that accountability?
Well, the first thing is, I have huge problems with the whole policy of cadre deployment, especially in the manner in which it's been exploited over the past 15 years by certain powers that be to actually see their friends being in high places rather than, basically awarding loyalty preference over competence. Loyalty to political interests. The second important factor that needs to be considered is to try and involve private sector businesses more actively in trying to sort out a lot of these problems. Many in the private sector have the skills that the municipalities do not have to sort this out, and the private companies do have a sense of accountability in a way that public officers don't have, because public officers are not accountable to shareholders, which private businesses really are. And with private businesses, there's a board of directors that will ask severe questions if they don't actually exert the appropriate oversight over some activities, and they can lend a lot of their expertise and competence to solving a lot of these problems.
Azar, there are, according to this dossier and report, obvious immediate interventions that could preserve water and consequently raise revenue. The dossier revealed that Johannesburg Water was losing a significant amount of that resource as a result of leaks at 42 out of the 129 reservoirs that it curates. And some of the reservoirs have apparently deteriorated to such an extent that they require immediate repairs. Joburg Water needs an estimated 330 million rand to fix the leaky reservoirs, but is unable to do all of that in a single financial year, according to the report, adding that non-revenue water was at 45%. There's no way they can get out of this quickly and effectively. So what's likely to happen here from your perspective?
Well, I would like to see at least some action to try and get to grips with this problem. In the same way as the government has concentrated its efforts on trying to reduce load shedding and has introduced a new Ministry of Electricity, we need more focused attention on water here, but also especially this, we're talking about a municipal problem here specifically, although it is a national problem. And I think, there needs to be some government intervention to ensure that the right people are put in the right positions, that proper water engineers are appointed to try and advise and resolve some of these problems. And let's get going on it. One gets the sense that very little has been done in recent times, and people have just sat on their backs and said, this is a problem, oh dear, it's a challenge, but without actually doing too much about it.
All right, so we know there's a huge impact of failed water and sanitation infrastructure. There's the obvious impact to life and, comforts, but also to the devaluation of that asset. All things considered, and in closing, is Treasury possibly going to have to ultimately bail out the city?
It's quite possible if push comes to shove and it's a totally critical situation, Treasury may well have to do so. And that brings it back to the fact that, this is why the rand is so low, that investors are reluctant or demand very high interest rates on any government debt or municipal debt that is issued in order to adjust for the risk involved in taking on such loans to these authorities.
Dr. Azar Jammine, thank you for your time and your perspective. We appreciate it.